Hi, welcome to Keeping It Real, the largest podcast made by real estate agents and for real estate agents. My name is DJ Paris. I am your guide and host through the show. And today is our monthly series called Closing Time with Chris Linsell from The Close. Now, this is a partnership between Keeping It Real and theclose.com, our favorite marketing and website and informational website for agents to learn how to further their business. But let's tell you a little bit more about The Close. Theclose.com is the kind of real estate website designed to give agents, teams, and brokerages actionable strategic insight from industry professionals. They cover real estate marketing, lead generation, technology, and team building strategies from the perspective of working agents and brokers who want to take their business to the next level. Please visit theclose.com. That's THECLOSE.com, and subscribe to their newsletter so you can get notified every time they publish an article. With us, as always, is Chris Linsell. He is a staff writer and real estate coach for The Close. Chris is The Close's resident expert on real estate topics ranging from marketing, lead gen, transactional best practices, and everything in between. He's a licensed agent in the state of Michigan. Chris has been part of hundreds of transactions, from modest rural starter homes to massive waterside compounds. When he isn't writing for The Close, you'll find Chris fly fishing or performing on the stage of his community's theater's production. Chris, welcome once again to Keeping It Real. We're excited to have you.
DJ, it's wonderful to be back. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I stumbled a bit at the end because as soon as I was reading about community theater, I thought I wanted to ask you if any of the troops that you might work with are back to doing in person, or if you're working on any new plays, or just curious about your acting.
Yeah, nothing at the moment. I have at the moment I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and abandoning my wife for 4 nights a week for rehearsal schedules with 2 absolutely adorable firecracker, don't listen to anybody children right now, I think would get me a tent in the front yard. So yeah. I'm gonna at the moment I don't have anything on the docket, but I did just sing the national anthem at my local minor league baseball game, minor league baseball team's game. So that was a moment of performance.
Was that the first time performing the national anthem, or
I've actually done it once before, but this was definitely I've done it once before. This was definitely a thrill and definitely a bucket list item for me. So tons of fun. Good to be back with a microphone in my hand and singing a little bit. Baseball's back, baby. I was having a good time.
Let me ask you, because I've played in bands. I'm not at best. I'm a harmony vocal person, and that's being generous. But I've always admire singers, and in bands that I've been in the past, I've never been able to really be the front man and sing much other than the backup stuff. But I am curious, for you as obviously an accomplished singer, how scary is it to get out there? Is it scary, or is it are you able to mitigate that stress? I'm just curious, because to me that would be very scary, because it's such a precise song. So I'm curious on and hitting the high note at the end also seems to be terrifying. But I'm curious, was it? I know this wasn't your first time, but was it as scary as the first time, or did no big deal to you? Or
it's certainly not a no big deal scenario, because I mean I mean, for anyone who is out listening outside of the United States, the national anthem at a baseball game is kind of an institution. I mean, it is something that everybody stands up for. It is a big deal. Everyone's quiet. It's a whole stadium full of people quiet listening to one person, and so that's a big deal, and I give that the weight and measure that it deserves. Personally, I don't really get nervous about that sort of thing. I never really have, because I've got a relatively diverse performance background, and that's a situation I'm used to. I have learned how to channel that nervous energy into performance and use that to better what I'm doing. And so it doesn't really bother me as far as nerves or is it a scary thing? But I will tell you this. I will say there if you are in front of people and your heart rate is beating as if nothing is happening, then I honestly feel bad for you because you're missing an opportunity to experience some new energy, some new a new dimension of the experience itself. And so your heart should be beating a little bit faster. You should have a little bit more awareness of what's going on around you. So I definitely feel that. I mean, I feel my energy and my adrenaline is up, but doesn't scare me. I get, honestly, if I get nervous, it's usually in a one-to-one scenario when I don't know what to say. That's where I feel the most nervous, frankly.
Wow. Well, congratulations. I
Hey,
think
thanks.
a lot of us listening, probably just hearing uh, the experience you just had of going out there, probably felt our heart beating a bit more, because it falls into that public speaking, but even a more nuanced version of public speaking, of course, with a different skill set that most people are terrified of doing.
Well,
Singing in front of an audience is probably even more terrifying. I know it would be for me. But I was just a good reminder to do scary things that are
yeah.
healthy,
Well,
stretch. And if you have a copy of that performance, we will definitely put a link to it on the notes of this episode, so that our audience can see you perform it at
I
that baseball game.
I'll have to take a look on that. That I'm not sure of, but I'll have to take a look. Before I move on, Jerry Seinfeld has an old bit where he talks about what people are afraid of, and he said there statistically more people are afraid of public speaking than they are of dying, which means that if you're at a funeral, you would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy.
That's a very good point.
Yeah,
Oh boy, that's great.
yeah,
Moving on to real estate
yeah. Let's
topics. I know
talk.
you had a couple of
Hmm.
things you wanted to discuss today. First, if I remember correctly, was about well, we could talk about software. I know software was a
Yeah,
topic, and then also working with buyers. Like, what are we
let's
doing with buyers
yeah
now?
let's just take a couple of minutes and do a quick tech check-in. Okay,
Great,
maybe this can be a part of like a subsection of our episode together, the tech check-in here.
great.
So I am, recently I've been doing some research. I've been writing some review content about some real estate platforms, some software and services that are attempting to do something that is a little bit different, and that is they're trying to become these all-in-one places. They're
Mm,
trying to bundle different services that real estate agents and teams and brokers use into one platform, one interface, and provide you with essentially a solution for multiple needs, instead of having kind of chopping up your needs across different specialized tools. And I'll give you an example. A while back, I wrote a review for a product called Property Base. We were talking about this earlier.
yep,
Property Base, they are a CRM. They offer a website. They happen to own the lead generation company Bold Leads. So they
yep.
have a lead gen. They have back office transaction management. They have a lot of different things that a real estate agent who's full time and busy, often leading their market, a lot of things that they need. But then the question becomes, what is better for agents? Is it better to use one of these all-in-one platforms that does everything pretty well? I mean, I'm not calling out Property Base specifically here. I actually really like their platform. Um, but when you have these all-in-ones, often you can't do everything on your
Right.
dashboard at like the highest level possible. You have to
Sure.
sacrifice performance in certain areas in order to bring your overall median performance up.
Mhm.
And so this kind of begs the question, do I want six really specialized high performing tools that I have to use individually and figure out myself how to get them to work together? Or do I want a platform that gives me all six of those tools in one place that's a lot more convenient, but potentially not as high performing, and potentially without the same sort of innovation that you would get if you were working tool by tool.
Individually.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm probably not the best person to ask, simply because I'm in charge of all of our technology at our firm, and selecting the technology and understanding, I'm also the guy that runs our server and builds websites. And so for me, in my daily activities, which are different from a traditional realtor, I have many systems that I use. And yes, it's complicated, it's annoying, and I wish there was an all-in-one solution. But to your point, it is difficult to find an all-in-one solution that performs at the highest levels across all categories. That being said, if I could find a solution that did 75% of what I needed, and it was an all-in-one solution, that would be very interesting to me. Because what I worry about with individual software providers is this. I have found, and again, I'm speaking in extreme generality here. There's always, I'm in no way an expert in the tech space, other than that I've just explored a lot of these options. What I worry about with these individual, niche sort of companies is, are there enough subscribers to their service where they're going to continue to innovate? I've been seeing a lot of tech companies like Property Base acquire other firms. We're seeing that Chime you were mentioning, is done some of that as well. There's other sort of all-in-one providers that we don't need to list all of them, but I put a little bit more faith, because I used to work at a tech company kind of similarly in a different space. And I know that the more resources you have, the more cool innovation you can usually do. So long answer to your question, but I want to like the small guys because they can do one thing exceptionally well. I worry about the small guys. I'm more sort of wanting to. And so when we decided for our agents, we chose an all-in-one platform that we would be providing. That being said, we understand most of our agents probably don't even use the platform we selected, not because it isn't good, just because they probably don't use any platform, quite honestly, or they have another solution that they've found. But for an average agent who is focused on growing their real estate business, isn't necessarily a super tech savvy person, I would say an all-in-one solution is probably just the easiest way to go, and will likely do most things. I'll say one other idea. If you're listening to this and thinking, I'm not a tech person at all, I don't, I still work off of a Google sheet, and just put all of my put them in a spreadsheet, put all my CRM information, and whatever works for you is fine, right?
Totally.
I don't want to suggest. I know top producers who work that way. They don't have any automated systems or impressive software solutions. They just work, in whatever system that they've developed for themselves. That being said, the other thing that you can think about is, if you're just somebody that you don't really understand that stuff, there are virtual assistants that you can hire that will understand all of this and help you manage and monitor it for maybe a lot less money than you might think. So I don't have a really comprehensive answer, other than don't worry about it if it isn't your strong suit, because an all-in-one solution would probably appeal to you. But also, even if that's too much for you to sort of wrap your mind around on a daily basis, you can have somebody working, even if it's just a couple hours a day, on your CRM. So anyway, sorry, long answer. What do you think?
Well, I totally agree with you. And I think just the last thing I'll say about this is, if an all-in-one solution sounds like something that you'd be excited about, if that sounds like simplifying your real estate workflow, as I say, is something that's going to benefit your business, there's a couple of providers to check out. Chime, Chime is definitely one of them. Chime offers a great real estate CRM website, lead gen platform. They have optional transaction management, team management. They even have broker management if you want to work on the enterprise level. Property Base, as we mentioned, they have that kind of trifecta with some additional transaction management capability, certainly. Lone Wolf Technologies, which
Sure.
you know, a lot of people you maybe have heard that name but don't know what they do. They are a tech company in the real estate space, and they're kind of expanding via acquisition. They just purchased Lion Desk not too long ago,
Mm-hmm.
and frankly, I might get some guff on Twitter for saying this, but Zillow is becoming an all-in-one platform for a lot of
They are.
people. The Zillow CRM actually has made some, I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud. The Zillow CRM has actually made some marked improvement over the last 6 months that has made me sit up and take a look at it again. Obviously, you can do lead gen there. Zillow offers integration with loans, with a whole host of things. So, you know, if you are not religiously opposed to Zillow, like I know some agents are, you know, that might be a platform that you might want to look into. Again, find me on Twitter and tell me I'm wrong. I'm happy to hear everyone's opinion on that. But there are a lot of different all-in-ones. This seems to be a trend in real estate technology, and maybe this will pass us by. Maybe this is a fad, but I don't think so. I think we're moving towards consolidation in a way that other non-real estate tech companies have been doing for a long time. I mean, look at Google is not just a text-based search engine. Google owns YouTube. Google owns a massive ad platform. Google owns a ton of different things. Android is a Google product. Like, these are all, you know, companies' attempts to bring more services under their umbrella. So it makes sense that real estate tech would follow that trend.
Yeah, and I agree too. There's so many different solutions, you know, that people are familiar with. Contactually is a really popular one.
Mm-hmm.
Follow Up Boss,
Mm-hmm.
Top Producer. There's a lot, and what I would encourage anyone to do if you're in the market for some sort of software provider is two things. Obviously, schedule at least 3 demos, you know,
Yeah.
from 3 separate providers, but also salespeople are salespeople, and
Yep.
demos are usually with a salesperson, and of course they're going to highlight, you know, the features that they know get
Mm-hmm.
people to subscribe and make orders. However, I recommend visiting forums online that are populated with realtors. The most obvious, largest one that comes to mind is Lab Coat Agents has a
Yep.
Facebook group that has over 100,000 realtors in it, which is absolutely incredible. And they would love that question. And in fact,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that question gets asked almost every day on there, but you could join Lab Coat Agents, a little plug for them, and start seeing what other agents in the field are using. And and what's cool is, you know, Reddit also, there's a realtor group on Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of different places, you know, ask your colleagues, you know, people at networking events. But it really, my philosophy around all of it is, you know, just pick one at some point and
Yeah.
put yourself into it, and realize that no software provider is really going to probably meet all of your needs.
Yeah.
But boy, if you can get like 75% of your needs met with one provider, woo, think about how much time you'd save.
Outrageous. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for that. That's great. And maybe in the future, we could even add a feature to the show where we highlight a tech provider.
Yeah.
Not necessarily here with Chris, although we certainly could do it with Chris. But if that's something that the listeners would like, you know, maybe we'll start featuring some of these tech companies. So and now let's talk about the thing that is probably most challenging to our listeners right now, which is working with buyers.
Yeah. Boy.
We've been talking about this a lot on the podcast over the last, you know, 6 months or so, with not just with Chris, but with most of our guests. And it is just the topic of discussion with pretty much everyone, whether they're a top producer or even the agents in our office who are new and starting out. This is a tricky time. So Chris, let's get into that.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna throw out there a question, I guess, to just get started. When does your clients' requests become unreasonable? At what point does your client ask you to do more than what you're obligated to do? Is there a line in the sand? What do you think, DJ? Is there a place where we have to say, like, this is just a bridge too far. I had recognized what you're asking, but it just doesn't make any sense. Is there a line somewhere in the
Well,
sands?
I think the most obvious line in the sand is a pre-approval letter.
Yep,
So,
totally.
I just spoke to an agent this morning who was not at our firm, was an agent we're looking to recruit who's pretty much new. And she says, I'm really struggling because I've taken out 4 buyers, but none of them, they end up not getting pre-approved.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that sounds like a training issue, from whatever firm she's currently at. So that's an obvious line in the sand that I think most of our listeners would say, well, of course you
Yeah.
needed that. But beyond that,
Uh-huh.
I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm not sure. I'm not
Okay.
sure where the
So
line is.
I think you're right in the same camp as most people listening to this, watching this on social. There is no line in the sand that I know of, other than, like you said, if somebody wants to see property that they're not pre-approved to purchase, that would be, I think, a pretty clear line. If somebody wants to, uh, you know, view property that is unavailable, like for instance, maybe there's a home that's under contract that's going to close in 3 days, and has said, they're very, very, this wouldn't be a fit for them, and it doesn't make any sense. I think that there's some rationale behind that, but beyond that, buyers agents kind of find themselves in a tough position because they often are working at the whims of their clients, and those whims don't always seem to make a lot of sense. And I'll give you an example. Right now we are in obviously a very competitive market when it comes to being a buyer. If you're a buyer's agent and you have a client who says, I'd like to see this house at 123 Main Street, and you call up the listing agent to 123 Main Street, say, I'd like to schedule a showing for this, and they say, well, we've got 12 offers in already, and I can tell you, without revealing all the details, I can tell you that it is very, very likely that this property will, an offer will be accepted significantly over asking price. And you return to your buyer client, you say, here's the information that I found out. And in your mind, you're thinking, as the buyer's agent, you're thinking, this makes no sense for us to see. This is not a house that we are likely to be able to make a competitive offer on. This is an hour out of my time that I could be spending doing something else. This is going to set my client back because they're going to come here. They're going to say, like, oh, this is a great house, let's make an offer, even though you know that that offer is likely to be not only not accepted, but not even competitive. What do we say to these clients? What do we say as buyer's agents? Do we say, no, I'm not going to show you this? Can we do
Right.
that? This is a challenge I think a lot of buyer's agents are facing right now.
And especially with the accessibility to properties, where in the past, of course, the agent was, I mean, there's no really even need to say this anymore because it feels like so many years ago now. But now, you're not the gatekeeper to finding out what properties are on the market, right? Anyone can go to Zillow or Redfin or a million other websites to find out what's available. And so I imagine we're talking about a scenario where a client might even find something on their own, say, this looks pretty great. And maybe they don't know it's under contract, or they see it and say, is there still a chance we could get it? And send that to you. I almost think, and I know this isn't probably really a great answer, but I almost think that conversation needs to happen before any properties are shown in person. Whereas I think there's an education session that could start at the beginning that says, let me sort of explain the process. Let's first give a state of the market. Here's kind of what I've been seeing as an agent. Here's maybe some expectations to consider when we see a property, the sort of speed to offer we need to keep in mind. We need to really be ready to make a decision as quick as possible. We need to know exactly what you guys, what's the top level, sort of bid that you are willing to put on any property, so that I can kind of do my research. But also, here's what happens if it's late at night and you're surfing Zillow and you find something that you really, really like. There may be a time time where I tell you, I know you love that property and I want to show you that property,
Yeah.
but here's why we might not want to go see it. I
Mm-hmm.
will show it to you if you absolutely want to, but I want to stress, you know, so I almost think all of those scenarios could, and again, maybe they'd be forgotten about right after that initial education
Sure.
meeting. And 2 days later, the person's saying, I want to go see this thing that's going to close in 2 days. But I think it gives you a better opportunity to not be blindsided and having to make that judgment call going, well, I don't want to let my client down, but this is really like not a good,
Yeah.
probably use of their time. Okay. Those are my thoughts. What are yours?
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. And I think it's actually it's an easier call to make when you are able to look at the situation objectively and say, this is or is not going to advance my client's best interests, because that to me makes the call easier. It doesn't
Yes.
necessarily make the answer one that is as palatable, but if you can say to yourself, seeing this property or not seeing this property is going to be the better choice for my client's best interests, then that right there it helps things. Unfortunately, we are in a world where it may be that seeing or not seeing that property will affect your best interest or your bottom line in a way that positively or negatively, which becomes a real challenge for real estate agents, because you have scenarios where somebody's like, well, I really like to see this house. I know that I have no chance of getting this,
Right.
but
They're willing to accept all of that. Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
take your Saturday so that we can go look at things that I have no chance of buying. And you have, as realtors, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients, but we also have to make sure that we are using our time in a way that's going to be ROI positive. If you are a real estate agent and you take somebody to see 100 different houses and they never write an offer, you are losing money every single showing because you could be spending that time somewhere else. And you ultimately have to make a decision on whether or not this is a client that is going to return the investment that you are making in them as well. And so though we can't make these decisions based on those factors specifically, they are a part of the conversation and the kind of the thought process for a lot of real estate agents. And I'll say this one thing that I've been talking to real estate agents about a lot lately in this scenario is we have to think to ourselves, not just about this transaction, but about the referrals that this person is going to make, and about if this is a buyer client, about, depending on what the typical turnover rate in your market is, a transaction that this person may or may not choose to do with you in 5 or 7 or 8 years. Because if we are not servicing the clients to the best of our abilities right now, the likelihood that they're going to call us to work with them again is much, much lower. So I'm encouraging real estate agents right now to think about the long run, to worry less about an hour or 90 minutes this Saturday, and think about making sure you're doing everything you possibly can so that when the chips are down, you can say, I've done everything I can to put you in a position to be successful. Because ultimately, that's our first priority. Our first priority isn't breakfast on Saturday. I love breakfast on Saturday, but if a client calls and this is the only time it can happen, this is the plan that we're going to have to try and make.
I 100% agree that those are great suggestions, and I feel the same way. I'm thinking though, it is difficult to say no to a client, and especially one that's excited to see a property that you feel is really, just forget about even a waste of your time. It's just not going to happen for them for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I think, a way to break that to them is to first meet them where they are emotionally, which is to say, oh my gosh, I see how excited you are about this. I am excited as well. And I would want nothing more than to walk in and show you this property and hope that it's your dream home. And then we can put it off for here's why I really am strongly encouraging us not to go see this property. And it's not because I don't want you to go see it. I want you to go see it. But what I don't want to happen is you walk in and you fall in love with it. And then you absolutely, we don't believe have a shot of getting it.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel good, because people fall in love with homes often, maybe not necessarily at first sight, but within even a first walkthrough. People walk out and they go, that's the one. The other thing I wanted to mention, which is what you were mentioning at the very end, which is about thinking long-term. I think this is really important, because I know that the times I've purchased homes, and I've talked to other people who have purchased homes, there's always something in the home that once you move in and you close, you move in, you realize, oh, I missed that. Whatever it is, there's always something that you miss, as the inspector missed it, the realtor missed it, the attorney. There's always something. Maybe it's a cosmetic issue, maybe it's a defect, whatever. And you always go, I wish my realtor would have seen that. And even though we know as realtors, we can't find everything, but I think you want to minimize the amount of those experiences for the buyer after a sale. Or after they purchase a property rather. So I think you really, really want to be careful. And you don't want to just show homes that you think are not in their best interest. And I think you have to be willing to very politely, but in an affirming way, tell them why.
Yeah, that's a really important piece of advice. And I think I try to put myself in the shoes of a client who is, I'm really excited about a house I just found on Zillow. I call my realtor and I say, I really want to see this. I think this is going to be the perfect house for me. This is the place I've been dreaming of. If my agent then turns around and says, it is a great place, I can see why you're excited about this. Here are the red flags that I see. And these are the reasons why this house, though it looks great on paper and on the screen, might be one you might want to reconsider how you're feeling about this. And here's why. If I get that message from my realtor, I'm disappointed for 20 minutes, but I'm not, I don't regret my decision, 20 weeks or 20 years later. And that's really, as agents, that's our real responsibility. It's not to protect the feelings of somebody for the next 30 minutes, though we don't want to be rude, but the protecting the feelings of our clients is not our mandate. Protecting the financial well-being of our clients is. So, don't be afraid to speak your mind, to use your experience, and to say, like, listen, this isn't the right place for these reasons. And it's a heck of a lot easier to have that conversation if the first thing you do when you create a buyer-client relationship with somebody is to sit down with them and say, what are your musts? What are your must-nots? What are the things that make or break your next property purchase? That's great just from a property search perspective. But when it comes time to have these conversations, if you've already had that check-in convo early in your relationship, you can pull up your notes from that and say, listen, this is what you told me. Here's the things in this property that go counter to what you told me. We need to have a conversation about this before we move forward. That makes that conversation a heck of a lot easier.
And just to tag on to that, if you aren't using a buyer intake process, a customer intake process, where you're capturing those answers to those questions of musts, likes to have, and various things. If you're just, and again, everybody does it differently, and I'm not here to criticize anybody's process, but if you are finding yourself in scenarios where your buyer's expectations over time are not in alignment with your expectations about how they should be thinking about buying, that's probably a process issue for you, and an easily solvable one. You can start finding, there's, you guys, I'm sure at the close, you might even have buyer sort of intake form questionnaires that you may recommend, or certainly they're easily findable online. But if you're not using some sort of process where, as Chris said, you can capture that information up front, and then when emotions kind of take over down the road, somebody gets really excited about something and you have to share some news that you think might disappoint them, you can say the red flags are these based on some of the things also that you mentioned that you wanted or didn't want.
Yeah, totally. I am just looking right now, just so I can say it on.
Put you on the spot with the questionnaire. I apologize for that.
No, it's okay. We
I
definitely
figured you
have
did.
this. Yeah, we have exactly. We have an article, and I'll send it to DJ so he can link it in the
Yes,
show notes here.
I will.
We have an article all about the must-dos for buyer agents, especially when it comes to intake. And it's 4 must-have real estate buyer agent checklists. It's your mortgage pre-approval, it's successful house hunting, it's open house attendance, it's contract to close, it's everything that you're going to need about this. So I will send that to DJ so he can include this here. The bottom line here, guys, is that as buyers agents, our responsibility is not to just push a contract forward through the process. It's not to just get a number from our clients, put it on a piece of paper, hand that to the seller's agent. It's not to be a mouthpiece. The bottom line here is that as buyers agents, if we're not actively advocating for our buyers' best interest, and sometimes that means advocating back to them to say, listen, this isn't what you want, this isn't going to serve your needs in the long run, then you're not doing your job. And the fact of the matter is, when we're in such a competitive climate as we are right now, buyers are desperate. They want to see anything because they have written 12 offers and none of them have been accepted. And they're like, oh, well, I'm going to have to re-sign my lease on my apartment pretty soon. I'm just going to start looking at stuff that doesn't fit my needs because I need a roof over my head. And it's your job as a buyer's agent to say, you are better to go month to month on your apartment for the next 2 months if you have to, than to buy a house that you're going to regret in 6 months from now.
I always love when I'm in a scenario talking to a salesperson, or somebody who is only really going to directly benefit if I purchase their product or service. I cannot tell you how much I love it when somebody says, I can sell this to you, but you're going to end up hating me down the road because this really isn't going to meet your needs.
Yeah.
I am so impressed with people that are willing to forego a quicker sale for a long-term relationship, and I have to assume most home buyers feel the same way.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're going to have to explain why it's not in their best interest, but I think if you tag it with, here's what I don't want to happen, and here's what you probably don't want to happen, and I want to make sure, and if they say, I understand all of that and I want to go see it, well, then you have a decision to make whether you're willing to do that or not. And maybe in that scenario, maybe it makes sense. Obviously, everyone can determine that for themselves, but yeah, I think the more education you can do ahead of time and running over every possible scenario that's relevant to their situation to say, okay, here's what might happen. You fall in love with a home, we put an offer in, and then 10 more offers, explaining just what might go wrong and what might go right, so that the expectations are there, I think is the key to making sure your time is not overused by the client.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, it's a balancing act.
It is. And we would love to hear your thoughts about this as well, because I'm not a practicing agent. I mean, I have almost 800 of them here in my office, which sounds like I probably know a lot, but the truth is that most of our agents aren't talking that much about it. So I would love to hear your thoughts, and Chris, I'm sure, would as well. So please, send us your thoughts about this. And if you have a really specific take or something that works well for you, we might even feature it here on the podcast. So you can always send us contact us through our website or through Facebook or through Chris directly at the Close itself. And Chris, we should real quickly, as we're wrapping up, let's talk about the Close Pro. The Close Pro, which is your subscription model for the Close, which is a free website with unbelievable free content, but there's also a premium service. Do you mind sharing just a little bit about that?
100%. Here's 30 seconds on the Close Pro. The Close Pro is the premium option from the Close that offers anyone who wants it a chance to get more and more in-depth content similar to what you find on theclose.com. Go to theclose.com. 99% of what we've got there is totally free. We want you to use it. Come download all the templates of the strategy guides, best practices. We publish there almost 7 days a week now. Come check out what we got. If you want to take it to the next level and get access to courses, to insider strategy guides from top producers across the country, we have the Close Pro. It's $35 a month or $299 a year. As a part of this, you get multiple boot camps, you get video training courses, you get over 50 downloadable resources, and we're adding to that every single week. And you get access to small group coaching. And so if you've got specific questions that you want answered, that you're not finding the answers to on theclose.com, I'd be surprised by that because we have a lot of stuff on there. But if there's stuff that you want specific personalized answers to, come join the Close Pro. We've got a ton of different resources and not just not just templates, but long form strategy guides. I just finished a strategy guide all about real estate farming for the Close Pro that's literally 60 pages long. So if you want to go deep into farming, I mean, I talk about postcard cadence. I talk about selecting the right neighborhood based on turnover and absorption rates. I talk about getting into the nitty-gritty operations, like down 3, 4, 5, 6 decimal points. If you want to get that specific about your exploration of real estate marketing strategy and insight, come join the Close Pro. I got all sorts of cool stuff there.
Wow. Well, we love the Close and the Close Pro. Everyone should check it out, get hooked on their content, subscribe to their premium service if that fits your needs. And they're about the only, sort of platform out there that we've found that specifically really focuses all of their attention on helping you grow your business from a journalistic perspective. It's really very, very cool. We're so honored to have Chris on the show every month. Chris, thank you once again. And Chris, we should mention, we'll be speaking at the National Association of Realtors. And then you also have other speaking engagements. But Chris will be in San Diego this November for NAR. I will be there. Chris will be there as well. But Chris, do you mind, you want to plug some of your other appearances?
Yeah, if you're going to be on the East Coast in December, come on over to Triple Play in Atlantic City. If you're in Atlantic City, New York, or if you're in Pennsylvania, New York, or New Jersey, this is a big event. I'm really excited to be presenting there. I'm actually going to be presenting a couple of different times there. One of them is going to be for CE credit. So if you need continuing education, come get it with me. I'd love to help you out there. There's a few other things that are going to be coming to the calendar that I can't talk about just yet. But West Coast, come join us at NAR. East Coast, come join me at Triple Play. Triple Play is in December, NAR is in November. And between now and then, go out and enjoy some summer weather because it's beautiful out there.
All right. Well, we will see everyone on our next episode. Chris, thanks again. Thank you to our audience for continuing to listen and support our show. And please just tell a friend. Think of one other agent that could benefit from hearing this great conversation about software and also what to do with buyers' demands right now, and send them a link to our episode, which you can find right on our website, keepingitrealpod.com, or just have them pull up a podcast app, search for Keeping It Real, and hit the subscribe button. Chris, thank you so much again. I think I've thanked you 4 or 5 times already at the end here, but I'm so appreciative that you come on, and we will see everyone on the next episode.
Thanks, TJ. See you soon.